All right, well, Chris Broken, welcome to the webcast. I'm Jordan.
I'm Chris with PDQ.com.
All right, so today we're kind of discussing, we kind of put it, things in PowerShell you're afraid to ask, but it's difficult things to learn if you're new to it, or gotchas that you ran into, I suppose.
Or we've run into, or maybe you've run into, I don't know, ask questions, get answers, maybe. I mean, it's a good one. It's kind of random PowerShell stuff, so there's really no format other than almost a Q&A, maybe?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay. Cool. Let's get to it.
Okay. All right, so I guess to start, I'll go into the thing that I struggled with the most is I did a lot of Active Directory administration, and it doesn't give you a lot of usable time formats.
Okay.
PowerShell can help you convert it, but I was doing for a while is like a foreach loop where I was doing a conversion for each object.
Yeah.
And so there's something called calculated properties, which you informed me that's what they're called on Monday. I just called it the label and expression thing. So all this is I don't have Active Directory on this one, so I imported a file that had what it would look like if you had run an Active Directory query.
So what you can see. He hit F8.
F8 to run just that line. So we have John, A employee, clever name, the last entry, all these employees. But the last login and account expires are not really in a usable format. So at the top we have in here, it's just, we're creating this. So L stands for label. I think you can actually put whatever you want there. I just label and expression is the common, so I just always put L and E.
Sure.
I don't think it particularly matters. So if we create those variables,
okay,
and then instead of last login, we did, I guess I could just do $sign last login. Save all that type and...
How did you make those users?
Huh? I actually did a Active Directory import and then manually changed the names.
That's awesome. Suspiciously fake name.
Yeah. Non-stop laughs. Further amusement.
Has never logged in.
All right, so now if we have that, we press F8 again, you can see it converts it on the fly. It's every time last logged in, and you can see my account expires today at 1.
Oh,
wait,
4.
what? Apparently we're going to have a discussion after this.
I wasn't going to tell you live, but...
Yeah, looks like my investigation has found some things out.
Further amusement from the 1600s is
You're going to keep
job.
Suspiciously fake name over me.
Well, productive.
All right. You know
Suspiciously productive, actually. Weird.
So this is just a way with when you're selecting the data that you want, you can run formulas or expressions against it without having to put it in a loop. It makes it easier.
It is.
You can actually put that right at the end of the select, but it's just easier to have as a variable so you can drop it in wherever you need it without taking up all that space.
Yeah, in fact, one of the things I've used this syntax for quite a bit is when I'm looking up some data and it returns it in bytes, I see a bunch of numbers that mean nothing to me. I want to see kilobytes, megabytes, gigabytes, right?
Yep.
How would we do that?
So if it's just in bytes, I believe you could just do the bracket and typecast it into kilobytes, can't you?
Should we do that?
Okay. All right.
That's a good times we're had, right?
We're going to do bytes, but we're going to spell it wrong?
Oh, my goodness.
Little bite size.
That many. F8 to create that. So you can, if you come in here, we type in $bytes.
Okay.
I believe at the front you can do, it's called typecast, or you can just do, is it KB work?
No.
No, I actually have to do kilobytes.
This is good. This is live and fun.
Right. Fine, we'll just do divide by KB or 1 KB, right?
Let's try it.
There we go. It's perfectly 12.16 kibs.
Yes. So one of the things, for example, let's just search here for a second. I just want type.
Try to get fancy with the typecast.
Well,
just use the slashy.
Do we have a temp file folder here? We probably do. Cool, we have a temp folder. So it's we have a file here. Ooh, like Chris's bag of holding. I like that. Get item. I don't remember what's on these computers.
All the way back in April.
It's fun finding artifacts.
Right. So we have the length here. So that's one of them where if you want to say select, let's say we want to do the name and the length, right? Let's say you wanted to have that in kilobytes like we're doing here. The syntax we're talking about here is just what Jordan showed us, which is essentially this with you did L equals...
That's for the label.
For the label. Let's do, super kilobytes.
Nice. You misspelled bytes.
Right. I should have spelled it correctly here. And then we're going to do the expression here. Also in the script block, that's something I wanted to call out while we're looking at this, is the expression itself is code. Like it's a script block, so do stuff there.
Yep. And you do want to separate the label and the expression by a semicolon.
Correct. So here I'm doing $_ to represent the current item in the pipeline. And then what is the length? So here, I'm just going to do just length by itself and show you what happens. So now it just changes the label to super kilobytes. And then I can actually still do maths on this like we did before, divided by 1 KB as Jordan did, and voila, we have super kilobytes and magic. So you can do this for a lot of your files or whatever. It shows, gets back numbers that you want to divide by space. You can do kilobytes, megabytes, gigabytes, terabytes, I think is the biggest one that you can do out of the box without doing maths. So, is that... I'm looking over at Colby. Colby, you would probably know more than I.
He's typing, which means he's looking into it.
Looks like petabyte works as well.
Oh,
PB.
good. Well, petabytes might be the last one then, because I've seen people go up from, exabytes, zettabytes, all the fun stuff. But anyway, that was a good transition into something that I've seen a lot that people don't know about, that you can actually convert things really easily that way. But, and on the spot, Jordan, yay.
Eventually.
Yeah. Cool. Well, what other fun stuff do we have?
I don't know. Do you want to go into contains and versus like?
Oh, that's a good one. So here's another gotcha that we see a lot. Ray, do you mind if I remove this? Actually, I'm going to switch to a different page so I don't remove it necessarily. So I see this a lot. I think you've seen a lot. I'm sure Colby's seen a lot. In fact, many of you have even done this. I've done this in the past. I have a string. It is my fancy string. I want to know, does this fancy string contains fancy? And I think, oh, this looks accurate. They had a contains thing. Cool. I'm going to run this. And it's going to say false. And I'm going to look at this and think, oh my goodness, no, you're false. And then get angry and probably scream at my computer. I don't want to get into that. You might think, oh, maybe I'll do wildcards. Oh, I'll put some asterisks or whatever and run that again. And it's still going to be lots of faults. The reason for that is contains is actually looking for a collection. So does this collection contain, in this case, my fancy string? And I'll expand it here in a bit. Does it contain that? It did. It's true. I could actually do more of a collection. I could say, does my fancy string or...
Just real quick, is contains case sensitive?
Corgis. Oops. Is it case sensitive?
Yeah.
No.
Is it was it I contains or...
C contains, I think,
C
is the
contains.
it's the case sensitive one, or whatever. C contains. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Case sensitive. See, we got that right there. It pulls up. You'll see it as if you're using an ISC. It'll be the same for VS Code or what have you. ISC is just really easy to use here for the webcast. We're using ISC. Anyway, so we can do contains, and then I can do something like dogs, and life should be happy. Yay. You have also seen the in construct, the end operator as well. It's the exact opposite. It's this particular value is in this collection. So if I wanted to do dogs in, and I'm just going to copy and paste this because you guys don't want to see me type live, unless you do, and then in which case, tune in later. We'll run that guy. And true. Yay.
So that's the reason. My default was always to, instead of learning something, I just always do -like and then bookend it with wildcards. So it would, as long as the word's in there.
Yes.
I guess it's good to know the reasons.
Reasons are good. Also raisins, if you like raisins. I do. You might not. But that he mentions like because what I was showing you before is my fancy string contains fancy. Well, no, most people what they want to do is my fancy string like. And then in this case, you can use wildcards such as the asterisk and do fancy. Does it contain fancy? And I'll run this line. And yes, in fact, that is true. So,
right. Do we have any questions?
Yeah, we'll do questions.
Dear Chris and Jordan, how do you abbreviate PowerShell? PoSh, PoSh, PS, or PS? Sincerely, I need to know.
This was recently hotly debated topic.
It's none of these, right?
Yeah, it's push. PWSH.
Which, incidentally, I think even a few days ago, so this is what we're talking about. I have it on the screen here. When they moved to PowerShell core and cross-platform stuff, they wanted to have more of a short name to be able to start the app with the shell.
Because Linux users are a bunch of whiners.
We also wanted to follow the same standard for other shells that exist in those other operating systems, such as Bash or Corn Shell or whatever. But in this case, it was determined to be PWSH for PowerShell.
I think PowerSH was already taken.
Yeah, maybe, or PSH was taken. I forget. There's a bunch that were taken, and there was a committee decided, and we decided on PWSH. Now, even recently, as recent on the PowerShell which is open source, by the way. So on their GitHub pages, one of the tickets, one of the issues that came in was actually asking somebody, on one of the old tickets, is there an official stance on the pronunciation of this? And at least one person who is highly involved with the development of this came and said, yeah, it's spelled PWSH, but I'm pronouncing it PoSh. So you may have seen PoSh, because that was one of the options that you gave. So it might be Push. I've said Push. You could read Push as Pwosh. Push, Pwosh, applesauce. Yeah, I
ran Push with Swish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I like Push because I like to just joke once in a while. I want to get this on a shirt. Push, nothing but .net. Woo!
Yeah.
And go that direction, which sounds corny, but it's great. It helps remember it.
Okay, that's going to be a shirt next week.
Yeah. So, anyway, PoSh works. You're going to see PoSh references. However, if you go search for PoSh 7 to look for PowerShell 7, you're probably not going to see very many, or if any, blogs. But if you type the Push, pronounced PoSh, whatever, PWSH 7, you'll see blogs on PowerShell 7. So that's how it would be abbreviated.
I refuse to call it PoSh because phonetics matter.
But it's so posh.
It's so fancy it doesn't even have to follow
Anyway.
language convention.
If we have, I don't know how many questions. Do we have another question? Because I can go off on a tangent on so many different things. Yeah.
Dear Chris and Jordan, what is the best, most secure way to start a script as another user? For example, with encrypted credentials in the script. Timo.
Yes.
So the first thing I do is I go to Chris's blog and copy what he has.
Well, I'll preface that a little bit by saying if you happen to use PDQ deploy or PDQ inventory for doing this stuff, I know this isn't PowerShell, but I want to call this out since we can do PowerShell steps in here. I can do a PowerShell step. Yay! I can tell it to run as the deploy user. I can define a credential to run for this script to run as that user on a target machine. Easy peasy. That's my preferred method because it's so fast. I don't have to think. But if you're using this in another application or you want to just use this in a set of scripts you're doing something else for, you're going to want to do the encrypting credentials and encrypt your password with a key file. And that key file now it uses AES for the encryption, and it is portable. If you do not use a key file when creating these encrypted credentials, it is linked. It uses the data protection API, the DP API, which links to your username on the computer that you're on, so it's not portable whatsoever. Essentially, it'll look like this. You want to generate a key, which is a byte array. So we'll do new object byte array. It can be 16, 24, 32, I believe, for AES stuff, so we'll just do 16. So we'll do that. And then with that byte array, we actually want to fill it, because this by itself will only actually be empty, I believe. Yeah, it's all zeros. We want to fill it. I think there's the cryptographic random number generator. I don't remember what it is. I'm going to hit tab here. Tab complete for the win. For those that don't use it, you should. Look at that.
That was fantastic.
I know. So we're going to do create. That's the method I want. In this case, I actually don't need to really create one, but I do not remember what it was called. There's a method for this once it's created. So I'm just going to use get member, run that. Doing this live is fun, folks. It is...
And very impressive.
I did this a lot. I feel very passionately about encrypting credentials. So this get bytes or the get non-zero bytes should work here because you want to just fill it. And it looks like you need to give it the byte array. So we'll do that one. So we'll do, and I lost my mouse. Mouse is gone. There we go. We'll do create, and then we'll just do the get, caps. Get non-zero bytes. And then we're going to give it that key that we just made. We'll run that. And now, if I run that command, that key variable, which had zeros for all the byte array, should now have a bunch of random bytes in it, which is fantastic. That's what we need.
Yeah. So, and this is something I've used this a lot, and I've never not had to go online and re-look it up. It's just, it's useful to have here, but a quick look. I think Colby linked the blog that has everything in there.
We want to output it to a key file. So or I guess we can call this key. I probably should use variables for the key file. I'm not, because I'm doing this live and I'm not thinking ahead. So you also want to define a password. I'm just going to use read host since we're doing this live, because read host can do as a secure string, which is what we want. So password read host as secure string. I'm going to run that, and you won't know what my fancy password is because you can't see nothing but dots. It might just be dots. We'll see. At this point, we want to take that, which now that password variable has a secure string, and we're going to take that secure string and we're going to use the key that we just generated and then put it to a file. So we'll do password, pipe that to convert from secure string. We want to use the key we just used, and then we're going to outfile it to the same location. We'll just say temp. We'll say password file, and if things don't hate me, we'll run that. Hey, it worked. That's impressive. Then we're going to build our credential. I know this is a lot, but this is something I want you guys to see. This is important. So we're going to do new object PS credential tab, because tab is awesome.
While he's doing that, just notice he hasn't saved his key anywhere. So if he closes this session, he won't be able to decrypt what he has because the key is not anything that he can import.
Oh, I did right there.
I stand corrected. He did save his key somewhere.
But yes, you want to save it so you could use it because you want to have it portable is the whole point here. So argument list, for creating a credential, you need to have the username, which is a string, so my fancy user, and then you also need to give it a secure string for the password. In this case, what I'm going to do, assuming you're doing this on the target machine or whatever, I'm going to do get content from that password file, so ctemp password file, and then I'm going to pipe that to convert to secure string, and I'm going to use the key that we just, I hate that it wraps around, key that we just defined, and in this case you can import the key as well. Since we already have it stored as a variable, I'm not going to. And this will create our credential, which I'll save in a variable as fancy creds. I'll run that, and then so we'll see fancy creds. Hey, username is we'll type it out. Username, woo, my fancy user. Now password, for those that don't know how. If you have a credential in the current session of PowerShell, you can see your password. Do you know how for that credential?
I can't remember this. It is one of the attributes you can point to.
One of these guys, this method. Get network credential dot password. So my fancy password. Hey, it looked like it worked. That's what I typed in.
All that security just thrown out the window.
Yeah.
It's gone.
Just remember that those files, like that key file and what have you, protect those as if you were protecting your password. Lock down your access control list, lock down your NTFS permissions, like do everything you can, your shares and your NTFS stuff.
Yeah, even having the key and the password file in separate locations is not a bad idea.
Like, be aware that if they have those, they have your password essentially. So anyway, that's what I would do. And so then to get this to run as a different user, you just supply the user and the password that you're trying to get it to run as. If you're trying to run it as a user that's currently logged on, that uses a lot more complex stuff that I'm not going to be able to do live with impersonation, and you can do that with PDQ deploy, and that's what I recommend doing. Switching back there, sorry. I'm just going to open a package. Sorry if you have something to say.
So, I mean, that was a cue that I should talk, not...
I have something.
Okay.
Logged on user.
Could you save that file so we can add that to the description for those that are watching from the future?
Save which file? This one?
Yes, this one.
Yeah.
The one that you wrote on the fly.
Sure, I can save it. This is essentially probably just a summary of what I have on that blog. So, but yeah, we can save this.
Also to those watching from the future, welcome to the past.
Yeah, we'll have this.
How's the future?
I'll save it afterwards.
I hope it's great.
Do
Anyway,
we have flying cars yet?
that was a great question. I appreciate questions about security and credentials and encryption. So that's near and dear to my heart. That's why I want to spend a little more time on that. Because there's sure.
All right. What do you want to talk about next?
We're on a webcast. What would you like? What's on your mind?
We'll go to the other one, the ACLA. I guess that was a user question, though. I don't want to trample on the user question. I guess we'll go over foreach versus foreach-object.
Sure. Want to run?
All right. So this one's going to be hard to show because I don't have a large file, but basically I believe foreach runs from memory. No, foreach-object runs from memory, and foreach runs from processor. So if you have a large set of data, the foreach-object is going to run much slower than just the foreach.
Show me.
Okay.
Show me what you were talking about when we say foreach or foreach-object, like just so the folks at home know what we're talking about.
So I guess we still have $A out there.
Do we? Oh yeah, your thing, huh?
Yep.
But this is kind of important, especially if you use large data sets or something that has a lot of data in it, or you want to work through it. It affects the speed and the ability to do this depending upon the resources you have available. This is an important one. So you might be familiar with this construct foreach, right?
Yeah, so that one is just, instead of listing the whole list, I did a for each. It goes to each user and it printed the name
Yes.
in that one. So there is the for each, or there's that dash object. It looks like it does the same thing, but it's just a basic speed thing. So mostly you're not going to see a difference.
Show me the other one for each object. So we'll keep this on one line. Let's see the other one. While I was typing that out, just again to reiterate, this for each scripting construct here is it loads everything into memory for this prior to actually going through them. So to bring that home a little bit, if you have a variable or something you're loading that has massive amounts of data, it'll take time to load before it iterates through them.
Yep. Where in this one we took the same $A, we did for each object, and then as we went over earlier, $_ is
Yes.
the existing object name, so we don't have to specify the $. User
Correct.
part.
What's the benefit of doing this one?
So I believe this one will be much faster as it does it live as it's pulling in the data, so it will get faster results if it's a bunch of data, but I'm not sure on that. And based on the look you're giving me, I'm going to say not that.
Opposite that.
Opposite that.
I love doing these things. Indulge us.
Yeah. I know one's fast.
But the first one, the for each one that loads it all into memory is fast because it loads into memory before it actually does all the operations after. Like it says, oh, get all the stuff and go through them. The second one, it basically says, I'm doing each one of these through the pipeline at one time, which means it has a smaller memory footprint, but there is a little bit of overhead of doing all the things before it comes back and does all the next thing, the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. But if you have a data set that will basically blow up when you use the original, the one at the top for each, it will not blow up if you use the second construct here, because it will actually allow you to process through it. So I've actually gone through one time in my past life. I had to go through a CSV that was somewhere around 6 million records long, just massive amounts that had to do with loading data into a dialing system. And for each would not work. It blew up. So for each object, however, it did, because it was able to do them one by one by one. It took a long time to get through all of them still, but at least I actually was able to process them.
Okay.
Something to have.
All right. Do we have any other questions?
Questions are good. I like questions.
Dear Chris and Jordan, I need a way to reassign permissions to folders. Used robocopy initially, but someone changed on server. Sincerely, Anonymous.
This is convenient. This is the one I almost went to without having the question.
That's magic.
So in PowerShell, it's just called, there's commands like ACL, get ACL, set ACL. So this one's actually just a quick one where we have two folders. The get ACL gets all of the permissions to that folder, and then in the second one, I'm setting the permissions to that folder. I don't want to do it because they're on the desktop and I don't want to mess with permissions. But you can see what the get looks like.
Coward.
Where this is basically, it gets you an ACL object. So with that one, if you, actually, that's not even going to work because I have to define get ACL as a variable.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, I'm still not running it, but at least this one would have worked. All right. So it gives you an ACL object, and then from that you can, for each folder, you can do a recursive where you can assign, if you know exactly what it is your folder has. But there is a way you can create an ACL object on the fly. Sure. I don't know if you want to show that one.
yeah. We were just talking about this right before we started, so thank you for submitting the question a little before, because it gives us time to actually think about and parse through it. Recommendation for those who have questions that are kind of deep in nature, submit them beforehand. Unless you want to see us stumped live or take forever live. Anyway, ACLs, for those that know, access control lists. You can use this technique to basically say, copy permissions on this folder and apply them to this folder, right? But maybe you need to change those. My technique that I use to do that, and notice here with the get ACL folder, he said duh. I'll run with it. So we have duh here, which we have stuff. I like to do select star to see all what's available because I often cannot remember what the various properties are and the values. And the reason I do this is because I'm looking for this thing that I could never remember, which is the system.security.accesscontrol.file system access rule.
I can't believe you didn't remember that.
Yeah. Of all things to remember, not that one. This is going to be different if you're doing a folder or if you're doing the registry, but in this case, since it's a file inside the file system, this is what we're looking at. I'm going to actually copy that, Control-C here, and the reason for that is because I actually want to use that and create a new one. And there's a lot of different ways to create this, looks like. But the one that I want is up here before it disappears, because I want a new, oh, it disappeared. Words are hard. Anyway, we want to define the identity, the rights, and the type. Yay. We'll do that. Anyway.
While you're doing that, Stephen, following in the chat, mentions that you can just install a module NTFS security, which he says is a little bit better.
Probably
so just install module, then I guess.
Who am I?
Yeah, import module.
Okay. New. So we'll do. I got to figure out who I am. Quintana. So in this case, I would actually do my guy, and then the what was the next one after this one? I believe it was the type or the stuff. So it's like full control, and then we do, I believe, allow, based off looking at. Okay. So in this case, I can actually create a new rule. So we'll call it new rule, and actually run that. Ooh. Then we have a new rule. You can actually modify all the other options here that are there, such as inheritance, whether or not you want to do inheritance or not for the ACLs. But you can take this and that ACL that you just defined, and one of the members here that we have, so one of the methods, is set access rule, and you can use that to use those newly created rules that you have to set it. So in this case, I could do, getting down here. So we do set access rule, and it is expecting just the rule. So we just define that rule. So new rule here, and now if I pull up and do select star, we'll actually see that we added explicitly Web Quintana allow full control. Oh wait, I don't know which one it is. It could be one of these because it probably already had full control since he probably just created the folders as this user. So this is a terrible example. But anyway.
Now it's got double full control. So.
Right, but in this case, all you have to do is do set ACL, and it'll take what you just modified for that ACL and say, now actually set it in stone.
And it looks like in the chat, Josh wants to know would the ACL command work with any volume type?
I don't know off the top of my head. I don't imagine why it wouldn't, but if you're familiar with the old command, which is fantastic, cackles, this one, whatever this can do, I'm pretty sure that the set ACL can do as well. So, or iCackles, that's it, iCackles, yes. If it can do it through iCackles, I'm pretty sure it can do it via the set ACL, but I'm not positive on that. I don't have a lot of experience personally with different kinds of volumes. I'm pretty simplistic on how I do things. Do you know, Colby?
I do not.
Yeah, from the chat, it seems people that regularly are using permissions really like the NTFS security module. So
cool.
I haven't used that one also, I don't know about it, but it seems to get a lot of upvotes.
Oh, then check it out then. Yeah. Good recommendation. Maybe I'll check it out at one point. I dove into PowerShell before these modules were often created, so I don't use the easy ones. I really should actually change that because as a good sysadmin, we really should be effectively lazy. So instead of reinventing the wheel, probably should use the tools that are out there. Just throwing that out there. So good call.
All right. I guess we want to go over syntax issues.
Sure. Oh God, this is
one that it's been less a problem for me because my first language was PowerShell. Everything I researched was this is how you write it in PowerShell. But if you're coming from experience in a different language, you probably have a couple of gotchas that you run into.
Yes. So one is that I'm particularly fond of that you may have run into is sub-expressions. You may have seen something akin to, actually let's do it in math. Let's do 2 plus 2 equals, what is it now?
4.
4, right. Cool. Well, wow, I disappeared. Cool, it's 4, but that's not really saying much because it's a string. What if I actually want to do the math? So in the case of PowerShell, which here's a cool little side note, you can do math on the shell itself. Hey, 2 plus 2 is 4. So I'm going to do this again, but in this case, I'm going to do a sub-expression. I'm going to do $, and then parentheses. This basically says within this string, or sub-expression really, and within this expression, do this nested sub-expression. So in this case, I'm going to say 2 plus 2. And then that should say 2 plus 2 equals 4. You're going to encounter that. In fact, that one we just did for the for each. Notice, where is that? He had user.name. Here, on this line, a pipe to for each object $_name. If I wanted to say the name is, and put this all in quotes, this is a common mistake that I see people make. I want to run this, and then they get something weird that says, my name is, and then .name at the end. So this is a perfect example of where you would use a sub-expression. So then I wrap this entire thing with a $ parentheses, and then I run that line again, and hey, my name is John Q Employee, and all the fun stuff down there. So this is something that I see a lot. I'm sure you have. I'm sure you've even experienced it, especially on your journey to learn PowerShell. But that is a common gotcha that we see. Yeah?
Yeah.
That's a good one.
For the other one, greater than, less than, I always just dash GT just because that's what the internet told me as I was learning this stuff. But apparently other languages use the actual symbol.
Yeah. So this is what we're talking about. And this is just basic things here, right? But depending upon your background or what have you, the top one's not as approachable to some who are used to knowing that, hey, 5 actual math greater than symbol, the angled bracket here, 3, and what happens? I'll show you. In the case of the top one, when we run this, it says true because 5 is in fact greater than 3, the values. If I run this one, 5, this symbol here, this angle bracket for greater than 3, what do you expect is going to happen? It's not going to throw an error. Yep. Oh, I see the hands at home. Cool. So for those of you who are familiar with this particular pattern, it usually means output. So notice we're in the ctemp directory. If I go look at the directory here, get child item, I will see a new file here, called 3. And if I open it up, guess what's going to be inside?
Well, I hope it's a 5, otherwise we've got a problem.
Notepad. 3, excuse me. 5, there it is. So I see this a lot because people will end up using something like, oh, if 5 is greater than 3, do the stuff, and then, but then they question, well, wait, what happened? That didn't throw an error. Well, it's because you're not understanding the basic operators here. So anyway, greater than, it's the dash whatever. So if you have 5 dash in ISC or code, you can look at all of them. You can also go look at the about page about the operators, which brings me to a point. Help files in PowerShell are fantastic. Use them. Get help. Get all the help. If you haven't updated your help, do update help. I'm not going to do it live because it can take a little bit. But get help on all the things. Like there's so many about things. About operators. If I want to read that one, cool. I can learn all about the operators and it will be exciting and fantastic. And it's taken a lot longer to load than I thought. There we go. So, oh hey look, we just talked about the sub-expression operator. Woohoo! And all of them. So you might learn a thing just by looking at these different about help files. Anyway, tangent. Tangent.
Generally, if you found it from the internet, there is a help file on it that has a lot of the same information in there. You really don't have to leave PowerShell to find the data you're looking for.
No, not at all.
To update. Yeah.
It's fantastic. You can break it down. Anyway, do we have any more questions? I know I can go off forever. Teehee. Perhaps some Egyptians believe. I guess not. All right. Well, I'll go on to the next one.
All right. Well, what do you want to go over next?
Another good one. Ooh, you know what? Oh, here's one I see a lot. Especially for those who've been around or transitioned from PowerShell 2 to PowerShell 3, or just have dived in to something, is I'll just use get child item again, or get item, because I want to get the item of 3 since we just created that file right there, right? Here it is. In this case, if I want to select the name 3, maybe this is a bad example. We'll do Chris's bag of holding. The name is Chris's bag of holding .xml. If I want to do select, or this is short for select object, by the way, so I should type it out. Select object, I want the name. This is actually returning me the object that getItem returns, but then filtered down to just have the name. So if I want to actually use the string inside name, I cannot just use this command in place of putting that value somewhere else. I need to do one of 2 things. One is either wrap the entire command and use the property name directly, and that only is from PowerShell 3 and onwards, like that, and I can get the direct string, because notice that's just giving me the value versus the object, which that has this name property that has the value of Chris's bag of holding .xml. Or I can go back to that original one, maybe, and instead of doing select object name, which for the record, that's actually the same thing as doing select object property name, I can change that property to, expand property?
Yep.
Name. And when I see that, notice it's the same, it's just the value. It's not the actual object itself. So expand property allows you to use this select object command, this commandlet, but still expanding it to the command that you need, especially if you're piping that to the next command that expects explicitly a string, for example, in this case. So that's an important one.
Well, one thing you mentioned while doing that is the dot that only works in version 3.
Yes.
That's another thing. and I did this a lot when I was first starting, is I would just use the PowerShell on my system, which was by default version 2.
Yes.
And so I couldn't do a lot of stuff I found on the internet, or if I did go to it and get it updated, I couldn't run it on the machines I wanted to because it wasn't updated.
Yep.
So you definitely want to, if you can, write it for the lowest common denominator. But if not, you want to make sure the machine you're running against has the version that your code works for. So it's just kind of a gotcha. You can find out where the code came from or when it was added.
And upgrade if you can.
Yes.
Use the latest PowerShell if you can. There's a lot more cool features in there than you may or may not be using. Some things exist, some things don't. In PowerShell 2 and older, if you do a command that returns multiple results, if one of them is null and you're storing it in an array, it'll actually store a null value in the array. I mean, weird, crazy things happen. It's the dark ages of PowerShell. So anyway, I want to ask if we have more questions. Okay.
Absolutely we do. As a matter of fact, it's speed round time.
Oh, good. Oh, good. This is a fun one for speed round.
Oh, yes. Here we go. Dear Chris and Jordan, create a folder selector dialog, save to a variable, and then display the value to a dialog for review. Sincerely, Anon Y Mouse.
Okay. I'm going to clear screen here. If you think about this. Windows Forms. So you want to show the folder dialog, right? Was that what it was? Yeah, it was Windows. It was dialog. So system dot, what was it? Oh, where is it? Windows dot forms dot folder browser dialog. Yes. And I want to create a new one. In fact, let's just create that and say my window, because I'm smart like that. So this is going to create the actual folder dialog itself. It's not visible, mind you. I can go define stuff about it. In fact, if I'm going to interact with it down here, my window, you'll see some properties that are there. Root folder description. Root folder is the one that's important here, but I'll show you. There's also some properties, or excuse me, some methods that are available. If I use get member, show you that there's quite a few. In fact, the one we're interested in right now is show dialog. We're going to do that. I'm going to show that because I want to show that dialog to people. This is important. Show dialog. And notice you see nothing. It's because it's wonderfully hidden.
Yep.
Likes to open up behind things. Yeah, smart. But let's go select something, right? Have you ever done this before?
I have not.
It's exciting.
I will say, the class that you called upon is there by default in IIC, but if you're just running the console, you would have to import those before it would be able to find the show dialog.
The system Windows form specifically, yeah. So in this case, I just went and selected the C temp folder. So if I run my window again, I can see that the selected path is now C temp. I can set that to a variable, so I can say my folder is my window dot selected path. Cool. Now my folder is that. If you wanted to pop it up, there's multiple ways to do that. If you just want to use a message box, same thing. It's system.windows.message box. Oh, yay. Show all of them. Yep. And my folder. And it's, of course, behind. And yay, ctemp. You can make it pretty and do all the fun stuff, but that's kind of the general way that I would go about that if that's what you're looking to do. So anyway. Oh, more questions.
Yes, next question. Dear Chris and Jordan, is there a PowerShell commandlet to import a task into Task Scheduler? Sincerely, Anonymous.
So I don't know the commands off the top of my head for the task scheduler.
How would you find that out?
Git command, I think.
Let's do it. We've actually done. Did we do a webcast on this a while ago?
Yeah, but
I feel
as
like
we
we did.
know, I forget things as soon as I walk out of the room.
We've done this. I think I even might have a blog out there, or you have a blog on here. I don't know. If we don't have a blog out there, I feel kind of sad because I know we've done some content around this because scheduled tasks is a good thing to do.
Here we go. Get scheduled task, new schedule.
Yes.
So what was the question looking for? Which one of these?
How to import a task into the task scheduler. Here's the fun part.
Okay.
Or unless, what are your thoughts?
So in that one, I mean, first you'd have to, I guess, build the task or copy task from a different machine, and then you could set it on your task scheduler. But as far as building on the fly, that's probably going to be a bit more than they want to see in a speed round.
Yeah, we can't do this in speed round. So you're going to actually need to use all of these because you actually need to find the action, the principle, the settings, and the trigger. So it requires a lot of things to say, define this, define this, define this, define this, combine this, and create task. You can actually use tasks. It's one of the old command line ones. Tasks, I think. Yes? And you can actually do that all in one line. It doesn't use the PowerShell, but you can use it from PowerShell, clearly. But either way works. If you want any more assistance, check out our content we have, the video, or reach out with a specific question or idea, or maybe we'll do a webcast on it again. I don't know.
Well, clearly I need a refresher.
Yeah, it's just not enough for speedrun, I guess.
Dear Chris and Jordan, why should cha-ching null be placed on the left side of a comparison? Sincerely, Stephen V.
In my case, it's because the script editor yells at me if I don't.
So the PS script analyzer is yelling at you if you don't in VS Code. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So you're just going to output.
This is a good one. It's PowerShell, and it's in its wonderful nature loves to pretend to know what you think you're talking about. Colby.
I know there's a blog out there
Yeah.
somewhere that I'm trying to look up.
Yeah, I figured as much. If I recall, the way that it casts, it data types for when you're doing a comparison, it'll use the left as the reference point. So I wish I had the examples off the top of my head. I've done them again in webcast before, but without thinking of this on the spot, I can't give you a good example. But the whole point is when you try comparing certain values, like an empty string to null, or like a 0 to null, or different things, it tends to interpret the one on the left and then compare against that. And in some cases, you're going to get not the comparison that you expect. If you want an example of this is the speed round, so I'm not going to go into it. Email me. Email support, email something, contact me. I have the example. I actually have it saved as a document so that I can have it to tell people. So
That was Stephen, so I imagine it was just a test more than he wants to know.
Oh, Stephen V. Oh, yeah, he probably actually does. Yeah, know it.
Hey, Chris and Jordan, what is the best IDE to use when trying to program in PowerShell? Thanks, Brendan W.
Good question. What's your preference?
I still prefer ISE.
Oh.
I know VS Code has so much that's useful, but I struggle with changes. So I acknowledge the value, and I doggedly stick to my guns.
Colby, do you have a thought?
I prefer VS Code.
Cool. I want to prefer VS Code. I haven't taken the time to really transition to it. I have used it extensively, but there's still a few gotchas that I run into, and I get frustrated, throw my hands up, and switch back to a regular PowerShell prompt, or in the case when I need it to build out a script, like you're talking about in IDE, ISE. But honestly, whatever works for you is what's best for you. So, because best is relative. VS Code has the wonderful extensions that you can then expand upon and actually make it wonderful. You can have multiple different sessions. You can have different versions of PowerShell that you want to target in these. And actually, there's a lot of stuff you can do, let alone the theming, which is fantastic in code versus ISE.
It has the VS Code has the shared script where you can both work on the same script without having to be in the same room.
Yeah, that one's pretty cool.
Yeah, that was
a Visual Studio one, actually.
Like
Visual
I
Studio
I can
shared screen.
acknowledge the value, but I'm stubborn.
Yeah, it just takes time.
Dear Chris and Jordan, how would you store a password for a wireless profile inside a PowerShell script without it being in clear text? Sincerely, Brian, ain't nothing but a G thing.
This goes along the lines of what we went over earlier when we went over encrypting.
Yes.
You could, if you create that key file and the password file, you import them from wherever they're at, and you can use that to have the secured
Also,
password.
one more thought. If it's just on a profile locally to your machine, it depends what you're doing with this, but if it's just on your machine, I would actually not use the key file because then you could actually just have it use DP API. And the fastest way to create a credential for this is get credential, right, which you know and love, and then actually, well, let's get that value. I know it's speed round. You got it. I swear. Get credential, and we'll do and and then take your credential and then pipe it to out CL. What is it? What is it? What is the CLI XML one?
I think you just said it.
Oh.
It's in the out-CLI.
Is it?
I believe so.
I don't see it there.
New dash?
Well, get command. This one do it.
It's
CLI.
gonna be verb dash now.
Oh, so many.
Export CLI XML.
Export. Yes, thank you. So we have.
We wouldn't have gotten there.
It was right there. I saw it. And it's export CLI XML. Thank you. And then put that somewhere. Temp. Creds. And that actually saves a wonderful file that, if it's not temp, it'll actually save a file with like an XML format of the object that you're exporting, putting through the pipeline. It'll have a reference to your username and the secure string that is the value of your password. So it still is actually shown as you can't see this. Even if I go open up that file, which, hey, why don't we do that? Because I like to show. Oh, I don't need this. I can just do, I know, notepad, let's see, temp. This is good speed round, I know.
You're already in temp. You could have just put file name.
See, here we go. And there's the actual username and the password in the form of a secure string. So kind of nice. It's good. Then you can actually just use import CLI XML to a variable, and voila, you have credentials.
Hey, Chris and Jordan, when is it better to leverage .NET types directly as opposed to a commandlet that may do the same thing? Thanks so much, Stephen V.
It's a good question. I have thoughts. Do you have any thoughts before I go?
My initial thought is I'm generally going to default to the commandlet, but if it's not doing exactly what I want, then you can go to the .NET and you can kind of build closer to what you're looking for in that specific scenario. Commandlets are best guess, but everything you do is going to be unique.
Yeah, commandlets are discoverable. They're learnable, at least in my experience. If you want to know something, like I couldn't remember the export CLI command, and so I was doing git command to discover it, and I found it, and it works. If you're doing the same thing for like more .NET, class stuff that you want to go use, it's not as intuitive because you have to go Google and look through the different classes that are available. It's fantastic, but generally speaking, if I can't do it with a commandlet, I'll do it with .NET, as Jordan was saying. But there's also speed reasons. I know Colby's a big fan of using dictionaries or lists to do things much faster, right?
Yep, the array list object, if I remember correctly.
Because there's certain things and certain constructs, certain objects that you can get via the instantiating them from the .NET methods themselves that are faster. Same thing with you want to actually null your output. There's the commandlet out null to nullify that, but you can actually also just cast it to the null type accelerator, or you can, there's more things that you can do that are more .NET-y or developer-y that are faster and actually more performant than the commandlets. So that would be my reason.
And our final question of the day, dear Chris and Jordan, is the same as
Nope. Short answer. No, null is basically saying there is no reference to anything. It is null. It doesn't exist. Double quotes basically says I'm an empty string. I'm an object. I'm a string, but currently the value is empty.
I think if we put a git member, it's going to... I guess we can do git member to that one, right? If we just do...
Go for it. Type. I'm a string.
Yep, at the top right there, it says it is a system string where for null there's nothing.
Show me.
All
Type
right.
null to git member. What happens? Let's get rid of that line too. Thank you.
I'm over here typing things. You worry about you.
I love it. I love doing stuff on the fly here. Oh! You must specify an object because it doesn't exist. That's the difference.
Yeah, so...
It's not instantiated.
And there's a lot of scenarios where you won't see a problem with that, but if you are using that as null and you run into a problem, it's going to fail horribly.
Yes, but going back to that question that Steve asked, if you're doing a comparison for null, put null on the left side. So if $null, dash EQ or equals whatever, then value like empty string or whatever you're doing, put the null on the left. Just Google it if you need to. Reach out to us if you want to. I'll point you some locations. I mean, we got this, but it's important. So,
All right.
I love questions.
All right, thanks for tuning in for, PowerShell Gotchas.
Yeah, it was fantastic. Thanks for watching, and if you guys like this, submit your questions. We'd love to do more of a Q&A thing, maybe even. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. No matter what your problem is, PowerShell can fix it. And if there's a stumbling block, then there's people out there that can help you get past it.
It's true. And I'm Chris.
I'm Jordan.
Bye.
Thanks for joining our webcast today. Congratulations, I Need to Know and Brendan W., winners of PDQ swag. Send us your info at webcast@pdq.com. If you have additional questions, feel free to reach out to our support forums. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you back here next week.